Hello, everyone. This is Ed Breniger, and I'm the host of the Eddie Network podcast. And I'm glad you're with me today. And I have one of my favorite people in all the world to join me today for a conversation. Welcome to Nena Oshman. Nena was my literary agent for my first book, Circle of Impact. She is a brilliant woman who knows how to organize people and organize ideas and organize a fledgling writer, who I was, into creating something of real substance that is still selling today. Um, what has it been? 7 years?
7 years.
7 years. So Nina, I am so happy to have you here. Uh, and I'm so glad to talk to you about what you're doing today because you're off on your own and you're doing some new things. So give us an idea who you are and what you do.
Eddie podcast, Eddie Network. I love it. I love it. I don't think I've ever heard Eddie before come out of your mouth because you are Ed Breniger,
It's
author.
it's the Eddie.
The
I'm
Eddie,
the
excuse
Eddie.
me. The Eddie. You are the Eddie. You are the Eddie. Um, and I want to correct just one thing. I am your literary agent. I wasn't. It was not a was.
All
I
right.
am. Is
We
that
still
right?
are.
Is that how that works?
Yes.
The Eddie. Okay, Ed Breniger. I guess the first time we met was, yes, 7 years ago, working with Circle of Impact, which
It was more than
was
that.
it
It was eight,
more than
nine
that
years ago. It was because it was in
because you wrote it.
2016.
I don't even know how I know how we got connected. Oh my God, there's just so many connections here. I love it. It's incredible, Ed, incredible. And to watch what the book has done in congruent with who you are, it's just amazing. And back then I even knew that you had something really special. So yes, in 2021 I founded my current company called the Nominate Group, which is a book brand management company, literary agency. We are advisors, agents, and activators of your book. So that's a little like a thing of what I do now. It's the same, basically, what I've been doing. I'll just take you on a journey here, Ed. I will
Yeah,
take you with me, but
I'm going with you.
thank you. Walk alongside. I've been in publishing. I've been an agent for 20 years, and I was blessed to work for an incredible woman for 15 of those 20 years, learning so much about an industry that back in 2005, when I started, I did not even know anything about the literary business, the publishing industry. Being an agent was something that I had no idea was even a job, a career path. I was in production and television before I was an agent and was recruited to work at this incredible literary agency that then truly changed my life and changed the trajectory of my life. And then in 2016 meeting you, then learning more about and then 2020 happened and then turned into this amazing opportunity for me to really look at what I can do on my own. I never thought I would my own business and be an entrepreneur and be a founder of this incredible in this incredible industry that I still remain so enthusiastic about.
Well, it's amazing to have watched you through all these years and know that you're just scratching the surface of what you can do. And because I think that the world of publishing is changing, and it's changing in ways that are hard to hard to identify if you've been in the system for a long time. Am I right about
Yeah,
that?
I think the don't you think in a way, and this is why I love talking to you, but because we're just going to chat, right? We're just going
Yeah,
to
we're
walk,
just
we're
talking
just going to chat.
like we
Don't
were
you
before the previous hour.
exactly, we were talking for a long time before. Don't you think Ed, that every industry shifts and changes and evolves and there's something, if I could just put blinders on and look at publishing, yes, it changes. And yes, there's fright and fear when things change or evolve. But I mean, the Gutenberg happened many centuries ago. I think we're okay. I think the publishing space will still always be, the hardcover book, right? Like um maybe it will look different like it did back those centuries ago, but I think it's going to change. But I guess what you're trying to say is if you can evolve with it, if you can be nimble, if you can um see where you can fit yourself into it, then it doesn't feel like it's changing. I mean, because I think back in the day, like what, in the 60s, I wasn't around um in publishing, but like, typewriters and men, editing manuscripts with pens and cigarettes. Like, I don't think that happens anymore, but here we are still editing and working with um, agents and having publishing conversations, very lively lunches still to this day. I think overall books are going to be around forever. And I think that the integrity remains. That's what I love about publishing. I don't think I could ever I love being in the book space because the books are authentic to what the author wants to say, and the editor keeps that, and the publisher keeps that authentic and keeps it
Yeah.
true to what the author wants it to be. And I think that's what will remain.
I think what has changed is that the opportunities to publish are much wider and greater than before. And
Yep.
how you publish. I mean, we published and then we put the Circle of Impact on Amazon. But if you go to my Amazon page today, I'll just Google Ed Breniger on Amazon, you'll find the Kindle version, a paperback version, a hardback version. You will even find a Chinese translation of the book, and you'll
Right.
find an audio version. So there are five different versions of my book that was simply a Kindle and a hardback, 6 years ago, 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's amazing.
and um, and now you can take those that one thing, and this is what I've done, and you can take little pieces out of it and write a Substack theme piece about that, or you could do a podcast on a piece of that, and you can talk about it, and you can draw people to it. I mean, I think that all this um, hand wringing over, oh, people are not reading anymore is not true. I think people
Mhm.
are still reading. They're not reading in the same way that they were, but they're still reading, and they're going to read things which matter to them. And so you have to be even better at being an author than you used to.
Yeah. I think that's really powerful. I'm writing it down. Read things the people read things that matter to them. And I think what's interesting, even with like social media, which I know is a hot topic for everyone, and I think people see social media for what it is, which is a blip in time and not in a very glamorous blip, right? It's not real life. It can't be real life because real life doesn't happen in 30 to 90 seconds. YouTube is also not real life. I guess you can edit it. No, it's not real life. It's not real life. It's not real conversations. And for me, even using my phone and reading manuscripts on my phone is still something that I have to come to grips with because it's not the typewriter and the editor writing with a piece of paper. But yeah, we're evolving. And yet I can still read Ed Berniger's next book on my phone and gather the information that I care about that I want to read in a way that helps me, you know, devour content faster or embrace what's truly authentic to what you want it to say or what you're trying to say.
I think the challenge for us writers is not to write. I mean, we all write for ourselves,
Mm.
but to write in such a way that people can hear you. And I think that's the hard part. And that's always been the case. It's always been the case. And now I think the generational differences are such that it makes it more difficult to write for a mass audience because I think the generations have different expectations for what they're going to read.
I don't know if so I think authors, and I think this is why you need an agent, is because you can write for yourself, but a book has to be for me, for the reader, not for you. So I think that I don't think it's generationally. I don't think it's like, the young generation or, then the retirees that aren't that have, I don't know. I don't think it's about like the specific audience. I think it's removing yourself from the material, Ed. I think it's taking yourself away from it and saying, okay, what does this really mean? What am I trying to say in this book? For other people, right? Not
Right,
for
right.
me.
It's
Yeah.
well, well, let me ask you this. I need to ask you questions instead of just pontificating here. Um,
Pontificate. This is the Eddie podcast. Come on.
it is, it is. But what we're doing is we're trying to establish a conversation with the public when we write a book. And we want them to respond to us. And the means for responding are much greater today than they've ever been. And this is the beauty of it. If you are a writer who wants to actually have a relationship with his or her readers.
Yeah.
Am I right about that?
I would agree. Yes. 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 I think that
So,
there's a lot of authors. So sorry, go. Sorry. What were you saying?
well, I'm just going to ask you, so how do we foster that conversation?
I think it's removing, well, I think it all depends on who the author and how you communicate. Um, because I think everyone has different relationships. Everyone treats relationships differently, wouldn't you say? I mean, that's what we've been
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
Everyone treats relationships differently. I do know that the most successful books that really connect with people, and you know, if you talk to 10 people, each person is going to say something different, like about their favorite book, right? So I think you can't look at how am I going to affect this one person. I think it's thinking about how do I want to communicate very specifically my concept to one person. And therefore, that one person is not going to be able to absorb the 150 to 300 pages in that book as their own, but they'll take away a couple of stories that then they'll translate to someone else, that then that person will then buy the book and have a completely different experience and not even react the same as that person who told them about the book. So I think it's not really necessarily establishing a relationship with your audience, is establish a relationship with your content and with your book, with your words. What do you want to say in that book? And I think a lot of people say, like, they have 5 books that they want to write. Well, let's just write one. And then also, let's write one good theory. Like, you don't have to write every theory in every book in this one book, because that's not really what it should be about. It should be, what do you really believe in, Ed? What do you want this one book to interact with one person? And that's when it really cascades into something much more profound.
If you remember when we worked on the Circle of Impact, the first draft was 17 chapters and 100 and about 75,000 words, and our editor recommended
Yeah.
over half of that being taken out, and just said just write about the Circle of Impact. And that the second draft was 40,000 words and only 9 chapters, and then a friend of mine who read the second draft, he says, you don't describe the Circle of Impact in here.
Oh my gosh. I don't
Really?
think,
Oh, the assumptions that we make that we're being very clear. So what you have now is the work of many people advising me of what to do, and that's the way it should be.
yep. A lot of people who think that they can do it on their own, I think that they think that I don't think that's possible. I don't think anything is possible without, to your point about relationships, I don't think anything's possible without having other experts come in and support. And that's what, again, what agents do. We help. I was talking to someone yesterday. If you think that you can do this by yourself, fine, but you can't. You absolutely cannot. And look, that's a prime example of, wait, I read your book that you cut, and I don't even think I understand what circle of impact means, which that's the title of the book. So you had to infuse more into that.
I added a
I
whole section.
added a whole section of like, oh, okay, this is what the book's about. It's so interesting. But I think there is like law to publishing. There's like a law to editing and um even to working with your editor. You can't do that alone. You can't like just you need someone to bounce off ideas before you present to your editor. So yeah, I think it's interesting when authors are like, oh, I can do this on my own. I don't need help, but everyone needs help. Everybody does.
Everybody needs help. Absolutely. My number one rule is everyone needs an editor.
Yeah, no, in
And that
life, right?
editor is a team of editors, basically.
Mhm. Mhm.
So,
True. True.
um, so what you're doing now is helping other writers find a way through the maze of what it means to publish a book.
Hmm. Hmm.
And what does it look like today for a book to be successful? How do you define that?
I don't know if it's not a one size fits all. I think it's determining what your horizon looks like, what the author sees as what their landscape is, and then finding in the horizon far away what they really want, but then having one goal through that beautiful landscape of look what's behind you, Dad. I love looking at the your beautiful background. So yeah, finding the goal in the horizon and then taking the appropriate steps to get there. Some authors really want to get on the New York Times bestseller list. Some authors want to sell 5,000 books a week. Some authors want to sell 5,000 books, period. Just sell 5,000 books. And then on the other side, that you've got the more intangible goals, which is I just want people to read it. And if one person comes back to me and says it changed their life, then I'm happy. So I think it just depends on what the author's specific goal, as specific as they can be. If they don't have any expectations, then we're really, really at a disadvantage because then it really gets lost. There is no horizon, there is no landscape. We can't even take steps into the future. So I really like to hone in on what the author really wants this to be for them. We spend a lot of time on figuring out what that goal is so that we can actually achieve it and exceed expectations.
Has the idea of writing for a certain segment of people changed over the last, say, decade or two?
I need you to ask me, what does that mean? Like like what does
Okay,
that mean?
so when I was writing, we were
Yeah.
putting the Circle of Impact together. The team was asking me, so who's this book for? Is it for CEOs? Is it for HR? And they were looking at it purely from the perspective of where does it fit within an institutional business structure? And I said to them, it's not for any of those directly, it's for people who are in transition. And they didn't
Hmm.
like that answer because they didn't know how to market to people who are in transition. And I found that to be true because I've had a lot of LinkedIn people who are marketers reach out to me, and I ask the same thing of them. So, how do you market to people who are in transition? He says, well, that's not something that we do. I said, but that's who your market is. That's who the people are
Yeah.
who are
Yeah.
on LinkedIn. And so how do you respond to that sort of notion that you have to write for a certain people?
I think you do have to identify the one person. I think Ed, people in trans I'm going to challenge you right now. People in transition, that is a loaded discussion, right? And so LinkedIn is for people who are looking for someone, right? Or looking for something, right? So it's like that's even kind of esoteric. So I think in books it's while people in transition, if we're going to take your circle of impact for example, okay, well, let's get a little clearer. Like, is it the average male who is having a midlife crisis, or is it the female who just had a baby, or is it the teenager who's trying to navigate the newness of, so I think it's helpful to be very specific, and you can identify three different people. You don't have to write to just one person, but I
Right.
think
Right.
think about, for your example, someone in transition, I think we have to go more specific to that. Um, but
Well, the
also in your,
transition, the
yeah.
transition was career transition, business environment transition, and world global transition. I mean, those are all the three, those are kind of three major, and that we were all in the midst of all of that. So I really did see that it was a book for everyone, and how to market that or how to sell that, how to talk about it was really about identifying those specific areas of transition that people were experiencing.
It's crazy too. Your book came out in 18. Was it 18?
Yeah.
I love the books from 18 to 21 that debuted, that were didn't know that there was the coronavirus was going to hit and just go crazy and shut the world down. I think those books are so special and so unique because listen to your book in transition, The World in Transition. You knew that. So we all knew something was coming, right? It's so interesting though, thinking about it now in 2025, how rich that book is even today and how it's timeless. And then again, back then it was like, yeah, I'm in transition. Yeah, I got to look for a job, or whatever it was. But how impactful was that? That you were a part of this window of time that knew something was coming, but and was prepared for something to happen, but then like just proved itself.
Well, I think the best writers are particularly in a kind of a business, or I don't want to say political, but a business cultural space, are able to see things that other people cannot see yet, and they're offering a perspective which helps them to see what's coming. And I think the books that you're talking about, those from 18 or 17 or 18 through 20, are those kinds of books.
Yeah.
And but I knew that when COVID started that I needed to say things about COVID. So I wrote 7 short books during the first 15 months of COVID because I felt like people needed not my, I hate to say it, my old stuff,
Mhm.
which was really current, but they needed to see a connection between Circle of Impact and what was going on right then and there.
Yeah. No,
So
it's
you got to keep
incredible.
writing. You got to keep writing.
Yes.
And I tell people, this is what I tell people. This is, whatever I'm writing is not a diary. This is not Ed's diary of today. No, this is a development of a perspective that becomes a historic resource for you that will be
Mm.
valuable to you in 50 years. And that's an odd thing to say, but I really do feel like, because if you go back and look at the things that I've written, it still has relevance.
Yep.
So, when you went into the publishing world, did you know what you were getting into when you did that?
No, I don't think I still don't think I know what I'm getting myself into. I think I know that I love, I'm curious. I'm extremely curious, and I love finding things that I have no idea what they are, and I love understanding people. I love learning about people and the human condition and the stories that people want to tell, but the stories that people don't tell are even more fascinating to me. So yeah, I think no, I didn't. I don't know. I don't know what I'm getting myself into. But what I do love is that I love trying to understand, what was this person writing? Like the books that are the most impactful to me. Yeah, I've worked on a lot of amazing brands and amazing books, and I love all of the authors that have impacted my career. And then when I think about the books that are um, supported in other ways, or the books that that happened by the grace of God. It's incredible to think about just the big books, right? And then the books that still are selling really well, but are making some sort of circle of impact just as much, right? But I remember so many of those that are the big ones and the ones that are still continuing to find their way in the world of in the libraries and the literary space. And it's just so fun to see how I was a part of that. And the that it does take a village. It takes a team to make it happen.
Is it a valid way to look at success here as two different types? And one is that you have a book that becomes a bestseller and sells, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of books right out of the gate. And then you have other books that slowly but surely sell, five or six or 10,000 books over a 10-year, 20-year period of time, and that they have this lasting effect upon the book buying public. And those are kind of two different things, and I was wondering how you look at those two kind of trajectories.
I think that it's really one. It doesn't isn't as like the big ones and the little engines that could. It's what the author like both of those audiences, the ones that sell 100,000 in a day and the ones that sell 10,000 in a year, right? Those are two different ones. Both those have people that they will never meet that were extremely impacted from their book. And so that's why I think it's like, we don't know everybody who reads our book. We don't
Yeah.
want to know everybody who reads our book. So that's when you really, I think the magic happens when you just let it go and not look at the numbers and say, okay, wait, someone once a day or someone once a week or someone once a year says your book changed my life. I mean, that's when you really have it. Um,
Yes.
I I think that the to streamline it into one is to say just the technical piece of it, Ed, is to look at your sales, which by the way, a lot of people that I have talked to just recently are not even looking at their numbers, which I think that's weird. If you can't, like, you got to know, you hear it all the time in business. If you don't know what your bank account looks like, well, you need to look at your bank account. You need to take a look at you can't just go through life thinking you have no idea. So if there are any authors that don't look at their book sales, I encourage them to look at their book sales over time because you'll see a trend. And if that trend is five a day, five a week, five a year, or whatever, then there's a trend there. So to take the number of selling 100,000 in a day or 10,000 in a year and distill it to, am I consistently selling a a, a, a range of books, right? A number of books, and then looking at it and going, oh wow, there's a bump there. That's interesting. What did I do that week that made that bump happen? That's when you're like, oh, okay, well, let me do more of that made the bump happen. So that's where I think it's like kind of fun to get to make it a science, right? There is an art to selling books, but there is a science to it that you can really lean into to make art really sell.
I agree with you, and I look at those things, and my my Amazon numbers came in this week. I haven't looked at them yet because
Oh,
I'm gonna.
good. I'm glad you're looking, but you will look.
Oh yeah, I will look at them tomorrow after by. I have six of these interviews to do in 2 days. So after I've finished with the sixth one, I will spend time in looking at that and see. And what I will do with that is I will look at what sells, and then I will strategize how to write more things that draw people to that book.
Good.
And in one of those books, I don't know if I have one handy, is called May Your No Be a Yes. And no one knows this, so I'm making an announcement
You're
to,
debuting.
to the world. That book was inspired by a day I spent with Nena back in 2020 when you were at the beginning of putting your new business together. And
Transition, so to speak. Transition. I was in transition.
and you expressed to me you had all these things pressing in on you, and at some point, it's about 3 hours into our day together, I said, you need to make your no a yes. You need to be able to say no because you're affirming some yes in your life. And out of that came this little book. And it's a
Hmm.
it's probably, other than the Circle of Influence, it's probably the best thing I've written. But it's
Oh, wow.
because it touches the question that so many people have is, why am I feeling so obligated to do all these things that other people are asking me to do? It's part of
Hmm.
the social media, I don't know, what do you call it? Craziness.
Craziness, craziness. I can't wait to get my hands on it. I'm impressed that I inspired something.
You well, you inspired a whole lot more than that, but that that's you respond to the thing. I mean, as a writer, you respond to things that you're experiencing. You see that these are questions that people have, and you want to answer those questions. And I mean, I've been telling you about this book process that I'm in now, where I'm curious about time because I feel like people. I'm going to say this to everyone that if you think that you can only live in the present, you're mistaken. That's a trap. It really is a trap to think that all you have to do is do whatever it is that it shows up in front of you today, because it means that you're never building anything. You're never reflecting back on the things that are important, and you're only giving up what is the possibilities for the future. So
Wow.
that's what I'm writing about. But I feel like that's really true. It's a really real problem for a lot of young people who get fed this kind of present only philosophy. So I'm writing a novel about how do we ask the questions that are important to us if we are trying to also live our lives at the same time.
I mean, I gotta tell you, that speaks to me. I don't think, I think I didn't think about it like that. I don't live in the present, but it's so hard to be a historian and to be a futurist at the same time, Ed. I mean, like it is tricky. You know, when you think about it, like you're trying
Oh
to,
yeah.
I get it that we have to, I live in the past. I'm someone who lives in, oh, well, that worked, so I'll make it work. So I try to use the past as a tool, not as like spoken word, or like that it's like the truth for today. But I never heard of it. I never heard someone say like live in the present or not live in the present because I can't think past today, Ed. Don't tell me to think about my future. But I think about my children's future, but no, not oof.
The present is only that fragment of time between the past and the future. It only exists as a breath.
Ooh,
What I'm really saying is we need to look back and understand our generational memory. Remember who has impacted us in the past. Look back generationally. So we're not just looking back at our parents or our siblings, or maybe we need to look back
yeah,
beyond our grandparents. And a lot of people don't have any clue as to who they, the families that they came from. And at the same time, plan our lives so that we are having an impact on our children, our grandchildren, our great grandchildren. That's the present orientation. I want to make sure that my great grandchildren are able to take care of themselves and take care of their family, and I want them to remember that I helped them do that. So that's this how this the past, present, and future becomes a continuity of time, and books are like that. Books are
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
And so the book, I'm reading. I read William Faulkner this year, Sound and the Fury. I read T.S. Eliot, and I'm reading Shakespeare, and I'm reading Plato, and I'm reading Machiavelli. All of that is memory from the past, which is having a resonance in the present that
Right.
will guide me and maybe other people into the future. That's why I think books are so important, Nina,
Yeah.
because they're representations of what people saw in the past, which mattered, and the books that still resonate with us today. I'm thinking about, say, Dostoevsky and Tolstoy and Hemingway and people from the past, Jane Austen. I mean, all these writers from the past, people read them today because they say something that matters that that mattered in the past that also matters today. And that generational memory is a way to define what we want for our generational memory to be in the future.
That's why I write books, Ed. That's why I help people write books. That's why I think it's important for everyone to write a book because it's legacy. I love that. I didn't even think, I love the generational memory, what you're saying. And I never thought of it as this kind of continuity factor. So the book to me, that's why I'm in books. What you just said is why I'm in books.
This is my little contribution to human history,
The world,
to the world. So
human history.
let's talk big picture. I mean, you express confidence in writing books in the publishing world, and it'll adapt to whatever the circumstances are. But tell me about what you feel like in terms of your hope for the future and hope for people taking a book and letting it become a way to define what they want for their lives. So give me a sense of what you see there, because what you're saying is when someone comes to me with a book idea, I think this is what you're saying. I'm seeing how they're going to connect with some readers that will help them with their lives in the future. Am I
With
right?
changing history, like you just said, changing human history. I think everyone who writes a book wants to help make a mark on human history. I think they do. And I want to help do that. I think what my hope is that, well, my purpose in life, and we've talked about this on that day, my purpose in life is to help. It's very clear in my mind. It's help human legacy. It's to help authors publish their legacies. Whoever that is, whatever book they want to publish, I want to help an author do that. So that's what I know in my heart is my since I've been doing it for 20 years, I think I'm going to just continue to doing it until God tells me to do something else. So my hope for the world is that everyone will make a mark through the written word somehow, whether it's a letter to their daughter, whether it's a letter to their granddaughter, or a published book about their science fiction world that they've created, that would impact, who knows, would impact an economist in 100 years from now, or the memoirist who has written 5, of her own stories that she hasn't told a soul and she wants that published. So that is my impact. That is what I want to do in the world, is to help authors publish their legacies.
What kind of books do you think are what how do I say this? Uh, Are there categories of books that are not being written that need to be written
Hmm.
because of the times that we're living in?
There's trends. I think there are trends. There
Okay.
are automatic like trends that people write, whether it is, you know, a social economist book or a psychological book or a sci-fi book, a book of fiction. There are trends. I don't know if there's holes in it because what I think is so interesting is when you find someone who is so extremely passionate about their concept that they can't think about anything else until they publish this book. Um, so yeah, I think that I don't think that there's a hole, or because sometimes I don't know if um the most interesting ones I get, I will say, are the ones I can't believe I'm going to say this. I'm going to say it, but it's everyone has something interesting to say. But the ones from prison are very interesting, very interesting. The writers who write from prison, if you can imagine, they write the letters from
Yes,
a
I can
place
imagine
that,
that.
and they write a world that is maybe it feels unreal, but yet if you know who the author is, then you think, okay, well, this is their reality. It's interesting. I don't want to go too far down it, but it's an interesting world that I can't believe I brought up right now, but it happens.
So is that a segment of a larger type of book where people are addressing a traumatic situation in their life and that trauma is sort of like a prison and they're trying to come
Mhm.
out of that trauma into something
Maybe.
where they're free in that sense?
Maybe. I think it's they don't the ones that I'm specifically talking about of the audience, right? The author is in jail. Those are never about the trauma. It's about another story. It has nothing to do with what has
Oh, is
happened to
that
them in
right?
jail.
Oh,
Another story. That it's now that I think about the trend, that's what the trend is for that one. But I do think that there are people who write because they can't write anything else and they have to get this concept out, this story. And I think it's so cool when people I get about 100 submissions a week from my little office here or to my office here from people all over the world. And it's so fascinating to see what they had to they had to put in my hands. Like it's just interesting. And it's all over the map. It's all over the map. A lot of memoirs, a lot of personal stories that come from trauma. I didn't think about it like that, Ed, that do come from trauma. But then there's also people that just have incredible, missions in life from their careers, from their research, from what they've done in their life. So yeah, I can't. I never thought about it like a trend or a hole that needs to be filled. It's more that people have to. It's a have to.
uh, can you name a book that you've really been impacted with, whether it's a prison book or something like that, in the last couple of years that um, maybe is unheralded, but you feel like is really, or is that
I think there's all I don't think of it. I don't think about it like this. So maybe that's why I'm so like called
okay?
to do what I do. But I do know that just recently something that sold really well, like I got a huge auction for it was a book on confidence and written from a woman who has a PhD in psychology, and she is very focused on she wrote her dissertation on confidence, and she did a study. She put the book together based on what she learned and gathered from a generational study that was said some astounding study. One of the statistics was that one out of two was like an insane number actually, but it was the majority of the younger generation, Generation Z, feels like they lack total confidence in everything. They don't know what to do with their jobs. They don't know what to do with anything. It was a really, really astounding study. So that book really made an impact with publishers. So I have to look at it in two ways: how I'm selling a book to a publisher, and then how that book to the author will resonate with their audience, right?
Mhm.
So I have to think of it how I sell a book, but also how the book is sold to them in the marketplace.
I understand that, and I think what your the author you mentioned, without mentioning her name, I think she's right, and I think you see, I see that in my interactions with particularly Gen Zs and Gen Alphas,
Hmm.
and what I see is that they're going to overcome this
Yeah.
because they're human beings and they have desire. They don't like being in this position. And so they're going I think the authors who are in their 20s and their teens are going to have a huge impact upon the world because they're coming out of a situation where no one expects anything of them except failure.
Hmm.
And they know that that's what the expectation is. And they don't want that to be the case.
Yeah.
Um, I was talking to a young man in Cody, Wyoming, 2 weeks ago, and we were sitting at a bar, and And I just said, well, tell me, always talking about talking with someone to get them to
Yeah.
come on the podcast. And I don't know if he will, but he's 25 years old. He grew up in a family where his father was an entrepreneur and he built two businesses and he's a manufacturer, and the son is not oriented exactly the way his father is oriented. And, but he started a construction business and he's actually
Hmm.
building a house for his father and he's doing this. But then he told me, he says, I think I'm about ready to shut my business down and go travel. I said, why are you going to travel? He says, because I want to discover things. He wants to see the world. He wants to see things and kind of come to grips with who he is rather than
Right.
what his father thinks he is or what the school thinks he is or what the media thinks he is. And he's looking for something. And I think this story will emerge from that generation because
Yeah.
they're searching for something which my generation and your generation can't give to them.
Right.
And and that to me is gives me a great deal of optimism about the future.
That makes me feel better too. That's amazing. That's amazing.
It is amazing. And I just happened to be sitting next to him. And I was
Right.
going to give
You
him a
never know.
copy of my book, but he says, I have a very difficult time reading because I lost my eye. He lost his eye as a child because of something his brother did. They were doing something, and so he says, I have a hard time reading. So
Wow, what a cool guy. What a cool guy. Who are
so
and the people you meet, you're incredible. I love
well,
hearing the stories of the people.
I process all that into trying to understand where the world is and where it's going.
Yeah.
Um, Nina, I'm so pleased to know you, and I'm so pleased and thankful for what you helped me to achieve. Um, I am more pleased with the Circle of Impact now than I was when we published it. I think
Yay.
it's more important. I think it will have a resonance 50 years from now. I don't think I could have ever imagined that when I was writing it, but now
Yep.
that I see where we are in the world, and I attribute that to your advice and your counsel and your support and your cheering me on and your selling the book to your publishers. And so I'm very grateful to you for, in a sense, giving me the life that I have now.
Wow. Oh gosh. Wow. I think I have to tell you, I I want every author to hear that because I think everyone thinks it's the 2 weeks after a book comes out. And what it is it's the 10 years later. It's having these conversations about Circle of Impact in such a way that you're just getting started. So I think that's what's incredible because you can't see the forest through the trees when you're writing the book and putting all of your heart and soul into it. And then that's why I can't believe I talk fast. I am the most impatient person, but when it comes to publishing, I become so patient because it's life. It shows itself. It presents itself so beautifully at the end. And there is no end. So,
Well, thank you, Nina. I'm grateful for you, and thank you for coming on and finding some time for me. And it's a pleasure and it's an honor.
anything for the Eddie Network. Anything. Anything.
And thank you all for watching. I hope that if you're a writer or you think of thinking about writing, that you will do it. Just
Do it.
take a notebook, take a little notebook and start writing. You
Do
can
it.
write
Look at
a
all our
word
writing.
a day, a phrase a day, a sentence a day. At some point you'll be writing 1,000 words a day or 2,500 words a day. It's the way it happens. So we'll see you next time here on the Eddie Network podcast. Thank you. Bye bye.